LLMs are designed to always give you an answer. I don't think that they ever say, I don't know. And that's exactly what sort of got me into trouble with a client on a recent project for the first time. And I'd like to talk a bit about what happened there. I've been editing podcasts for clients for many years now. And this particular podcast is always a conversation between two experts on the topic of AI. So what I do is I create the video podcast. I clean up the recording, I add some graphics, and I create a hook. So what I do is I watch the entire podcast at 2x speed. I set markers at sections that seem interesting. And at the end, I'll cut up whatever I have into something that is between 30 and 80 seconds long, and which will make up a little mini narrative that tells the story of what the viewer can expect from this podcast. I'd say for these hooks, given the duration of the podcast and given the specs that have been defined with the client, it takes me about an hour, maybe an hour and a half to create these hooks. And as I just mentioned, I do regularly try to evaluate new tools, try new processes. I thought I'd give AI a try to see if I can identify these moments for the hook faster. So what I did was export the transcript, feed the transcript to an LLM like ChatGPT or Claude, give it some instructions, give it some examples of what I'm trying to achieve. I want the target audience to understand what the podcast is about and hook them with the most interesting or most exciting parts of the podcast. So I instructed the LLM to create a shot list with the particular moments it would identify according to my instructions and provide me with the time codes that these statements relate to in the transcript. I tried this LLM experiment 2 times, and on the first time it worked relatively well. I had a look at the shot list with the statements from the transcript that it gave me, and it looked good. So I went into Premiere Pro and tried to edit this sequence that it gave me, but that's when I noticed some issues. Not all of the time codes were correct. I had to look for some of the statements that it associated with certain time codes, and they didn't always line up. Additionally, it actually fabricated statements, so sometimes it would just combine sentences from different sections, and additionally, it actually came up with statements that were never said at all in the transcript, so that was a bit problematic. I think I used about 70% of the actual shot list that it gave me, and I reworked some of the rest of it. I did have to verify every quote, every statement in the shot list against the original transcript and footage, and I also manually reworked the entire thing. So when it comes to saving time, I wouldn't say that this process was very helpful. What using AI in this process does is it gives me less of an overview of the actual material that I have, and I can't really verify that these are really the best statements, the most speaking, or the ones that will hook the viewer the most. I can just accept the output. However, with this first edit, the client was happy. They didn't really notice a difference to our usual edits as far as I'm aware, and so we ran with it. Given that there were some pros and some cons to this first experiment, it made sense to try it again. One of my next podcasts was way trickier than this one. It was very technical, it had very few emotional moments in it, and I thought, well, this is a perfect opportunity to try this again and see what it gives me, because on this one I might have had to actually go and watch the podcast a second time because I didn't really get enough that made sense to me on the first time. I prompted the LLM in a very similar way, but I added a bit more detail to the prompt to see if that would help mitigate some of the issues that were there previously. And I asked it very specifically to give me something that will hook the target audience despite this conversation being so technical. And The LLM had a very confident explanation as to why the result that it gave me would work. It chose an example that was given in the podcast and it condensed it. And to be honest, I was sitting there going, I had picked some of these statements, but I would not have had the idea to structure it in the way that it gave me. And I did feel a little intimidated by its explanation, by the result. It did still have some of the same issues where the time codes weren't always right and some of the statements were totally made up. But overall, I could make it work again, and I thought it was relatively efficient. And well, I tried to move back from this intimidation phase and say, well, if I can enhance my own skills with the LLM like this, then maybe that's what I gotta do. And instead of being intimidated, I have to see it as a chance, right? I thought maybe the LLM can actually teach me something that, I wouldn't have come up with by myself. So I finished up the podcast and I delivered it to the client. And his response was clear. It didn't work. He said it was too fragmented for a viewer or a listener who hadn't heard the conversation yet. And instead of the hook that I currently had, he suggested to me 3 simple shots that resulted in a hook that was about 30 seconds long, and to just keep it straightforward. But here's what made this experience valuable to me so far. When the LLM suggested this fragmented sequence for the hook, it didn't say, I'm not sure if this will work, or, I don't know, maybe what do you think? It said, this is why it's gonna work. It didn't just give me a bad suggestion, it gave me an absolutely perfectly explained bad suggestion. It sounded like someone who knew exactly what they were talking about. That's what an LLM does. And it was wrong. And that's why I think we need to be a bit careful about AI and LLMs in our workflows. It knows how to structure sentences. It knows how to create rhythm and how to create a smooth surface. But very often, there's nothing under the surface. So when do I think automated tools and AI are useful? Definitely for mechanical tasks, as a tool that doesn't make me lose sight of what I'm creating. Not as a meaning maker, but as something that helps me be more efficient in some processes. That's because some tasks, they do require that human experience because we are humans communicating with humans, right? It can make suggestions, but I don't think it can replace that instinct that we have. And frankly, I don't think it should. But the instinct of what we show our audience, that comes from caring, that comes from caring about talking to our audience. Because the fundamental issue is this: the LLM sounds right whether it is or not. I'd say they're optimized for sounding correct, but not for being correct. But I think what's becoming clearer to me is if we want to use AI or not, and let's leave all the ethical questions out of the way for now. In media production and in client work, there is definitely some need to evaluate these technologies. But for me, in my creative process, the big question is becoming, how much responsibility do I want to give an AI system? AI tools can help us analyze a lot of patterns. It can brainstorm stuff with us really well, and it can obviously generate a lot of stuff, some of which is useful and some is not. But it doesn't have that instinct. It cannot feel what humans feel when they watch something, when they hear something, when they listen to something, when they read something. And I think that's essential. And I will keep testing these tools and these new plugins and technologies. So what makes this experience valuable to me, and why I'm telling this story in the first place, is that I learned a bit more about not mistaking a convincing explanation for actual meaning, for genuine understanding. I think that's a really critical distinction. It doesn't just matter for my own work, but I think it matters for why we look at all this stuff in the first place.